Hi, I'm Jim Mann, along with Dr. Suzanne Crabtree. Welcome to our program, Dark Window. We will be talking with many of the leading investigators, researchers, and authors on the topics of UFOs, UAPs, alien abductions, extraterrestrials, and a host of other related topics. So please join us and our guests as we reach out. This is Dark Window on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. And hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here on Dark Window. I am Jim Mann, and along with me in the studio is Dr. Suzanne Crabtree, and for the next hour, we will be your hosts. Now, we have a very special guest in the studio with us tonight, James Keenan. How you doing, James? And if you're not familiar with James, you prepare yourself to be fascinated. And so, James, again, thank you for joining us. Suzanne, could you tell us a little bit more about James?
Sure. James Keenan is an author and a field investigator. He has a degree in interdisciplinary studies from the University of California in Santa Barbara, his main focus having been anthropology and archaeology. He regularly conducts investigations and technology data collections at sites around the world that appear to be connected to distant lost history or unexplainable events. Some of the more well-known sites include Blind Frog Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch in northeastern Utah. His findings have led him to believe that the unexplainable and ancient lost history are partly linked together. This includes his extensive research into the giants of Americas and their connection to past Native American oral traditions. So thank you, James. It's a real honor to have you here.
Yes, it is. And prior to becoming an author, James had a career. James, you had a career in law enforcement, private investigations that spanned 20 years. Wow. James has appeared on numerous radio and TV podcasts. His television appearances include Travel Channel, the History Channel, and on Gaia. James appeared on season 2 of the History Channel's Secrets of the Skinwalker. And we're going to get into that a little bit, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. So, James, I know there's a lot of interest in Skinwalker Ranch, a lot of talk about it. Can you tell us how you got involved and how often you go up there?
Yeah, sure. So originally when I was investigating up in northeastern Utah, which is where Skinwalker Ranch is, I was looking into the petroglyphs and pictographs that were in the area and looking into the commonalities between what's seen there, the desert Southwest and Mesoamerica. And interestingly, after a few years of doing this, you could notice that there was a lot of anomalies and a lot of things that were out of place in the rock art. And so doing a little bit more research led me to Skinwalker Ranch and this high amount of strangeness that's occurring in the Uinta Basin and the mountains, and all this different phenomena, all the way back, probably spanning about 100 years, but for sure since the 1990s, that originated with NIDS, the National Institute of Discovery Sciences, with Bob Bigelow's team, and then went into Bass. And then currently where we are with Brandon Fugel's team and the History Channel show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And the commonalities led me to want to investigate not just from the historical part, scientifically to collect data points to see what's going on. And if what was occurring in the past was also what's occurring currently. And sure enough, that's what it looked like. In regards to how often I'm up there, as a matter of fact, I just got back from being at Skinwalker Ranch a couple weeks ago. I've been up there a few times up on the mesa. It's more of I guess when there's a necessity or when something occurs or when my work coincides with that of Eric Bard's, that we'll get together. And that's pretty much where we're at right at this point.
Okay. Well, that's interesting that your interest in the pictographs and petrographs is what drew you up there and, started getting you to search deeper into it? It's kind of like, following those breadcrumbs.
Can you tell us a little bit, James, exactly what is a petroglyph or a pictograph or a petroglyph? Kind of explain the difference between the two. Are they the same?
Sure. So both of them are rock art. A petroglyph has been carved into the stone. It's historical data from the Native American or indigenous people in the past. It's very similar to, I guess, what would be hieroglyphics that you've heard from ancient Egypt. Mm-hmm. Pictograph has been painted onto the rock art using certain types of organic pigments, and based upon where it was placed. And the reason why the desert Southwest is so good at keeping these is because it's so arid. So there's very little to break down the organic materials, and they've lasted, in some places for over 10,000 years. And there's different ways of doing the pecking into, the desert varnish, which you may know as patina for the petroglyphs. And so those are the two differences. It was probably based upon what was available or who was doing it, what they preferred, what technique was preferred at the time.
You know what, James? We were recently up in Utah, up there at that Dinosaur National Park, and there was a number of petroglyphs. How old are those? How old is something like that?
That's right, Jim. We were up there in Utah together for a conference in Vernal. And in Dinosaur National Monument, you're talking about the Fremont style of petroglyphs and pictographs. They were a dead archaic people. The anthropologists and archaeologists in the area put them at around anywhere from the year 0 up to about 1200 AD. And I personally believe that it's probably a little bit older than that, probably started several hundred years, before the Common Era, and then moved into around the 1200s would be probably accurate at the newest end of it.
So those natives up there, that Native Americans up there, of course, they weren't Native American. They were just natives of the land. And they were in that whole Uinta Basin. What tribe are we talking about here?
Yeah, so we really don't know. And it's an interesting question. So what they've labeled them as desert archaic Indians. And we know that the barrier kin style and the Fremont cultures were there, but we've just labeled them that by sites that had artifacts that they were kind of near these petroglyphs and pictographs. So we really have no real clue, where they originated from. And we do know now that more than likely due to some type of catastrophic event or a reduction in the amount of water that was available for crops, they ended up migrating southward. And we're pretty sure at this point that they ended up becoming what we know as the Mexica, or what we probably know better up here in North America as the Aztec. Mm-hmm. And they absorbed, groups in Arizona as well as they went along, like the Hohokam, the Sinawa were probably taken up, absorbed, and moved as well. But we've had this migratory pattern back and forth, because it may have even been that they originated in Mexico first, maybe as the Toltec or pre-Toltec, and then moved northward, and then eventually had to return down to what's present-day Mexico, where the Aztec created what we know as Tenochtitlan.
I was surprised when we were listening to and being acquainted with the research being done on the Blind Frog Ranch, and they were talking about the Aztec presence up there, and that perhaps there was artifacts left in the Uinta Basin up there pertaining to the Aztecs. I mean, I never knew the Aztecs came that far north, but apparently they did. Correct?
Yeah. So what I believe is the Aztecs' origin, or where they originated from, was Antelope Island, which is in the middle of the Great Salt Lake. And they, like I said, then they migrated southward, due to some type of catastrophic event or whatever it was, absorbing other tribes as they moved southward. And the reason why the Uinta Basin and the Uinta Mountains is so important is because it looks to be another very important site for them, more of a place where they actually survived along with other species or cultures underground. And a lot of people associate a name Kershenab, but if you're looking in the Mesoamerican historical data, that Kershenab, which a lot of treasure hunters know about in Utah, is more than likely called Tamuan Khan in Nahuatl, which is, remember that the Ute, the Shoshone, the Paiute, which are Native Americans, along with the Aztec and other groups in central Mexico, are Nahuatl. And they're all Uto-Aztec speaking. The languages are similar because at some point they came from some type of origin that was all the same. So at Blind Frog Ranch were there a hall of records and very important artifacts in some type of underground left there originally, possibly. The other possibility is when the Aztec temporarily defeated the conquistadors and kicked them out of Tenochtitlan, Moctezuma was killed. And those people that were in charge after Moctezuma picked all that crap up, all their treasure, because they didn't, they knew that that's what the conquistadors were there for. And they took it elsewhere. They broke it up into multiple units, and a good possibility is they returned it to what they knew was a safe haven, this underground realm. So it's possible that Aztec treasure could have been deposited in the 1500s back in there, along with what was already there, and get into this rich oral tradition and other history with multiple Native American tribes and bands in the area, where so similarities and commonalities that create a lot of the high strangeness, a lot of the treasure hunting, and a lot of the phenomena that's occurring in northeastern Utah.
That's fascinating.
James,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Susan.
James, so I don't know if they're petroglyphs or pictographs that are in the Dinosaur National Monument. But are those both? Okay. Are they of the same era or time period as the ones that are around Skinwalker Ranch?
That's a tricky question because there's tens of thousands of them. You would be safe to say that from two eras, one Barrier Canyon style, the other Fremont, there are these one-off anomalies that are just crazy to realize that they don't have anything to do with the other cultures, but they seem to have attracted these later cultures to come and use the same area to put all this historical data on it. And that in and of itself is a huge data point as to why were these specific locations so dang important for, groups of indigenous people over thousands and thousands of years. What attracted them to the same location? And then you got to ask yourself, is it what's attracting us now to that same location?
Good question. So what do you believe is happening at Skinwalker Ranch?
Yeah, it's a dang good question. There's a lot of different phenomena occurring. Originally, you have so much going on. You have UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena. You have what more than likely people would consider portal events occurring, major magnetic anomalies, electromagnetic anomalies happening. You have radio frequencies that are just out of this world or maybe from inside this world. You have people hearing things above them, seeing things. You see cloaked objects that where it almost seems like the Predator movies occurring. And then you also have a lot of this government stepping into it and looking into what's going on. And you got to kind of be careful with that in regards to what might be made up in order to get funding, or what might be an event that's real. And you know, you got to look at each individual as to what they contributed to all this data that we have, not just in two well-known books, but you know, in other collected data. So I think the biggest question out there is, we know that there's something anomalous occurring that's highly magnetic. I personally believe it's underground. So is that attracting all this phenomena to it, or is it creating all the phenomena that we're seeing? And I think that's probably the best question to start off with and attempt to find data points. And if we're able to come across events, are we able to, you know, repeat that same data? And, you know, a lot of people say, oh, we have this event or anomalous course of strangeness occurring above the triangle. But in order for that to occur, where's the energy originating from? So I personally believe it's this connect the dot type of deal where you have something underground connected to what's above the air in the triangle, and then I believe sending something else out elsewhere, out to space. So there's a lot of moving parts involved with something in that nature or in that question.
Yeah. Did you personally experience anything, like see anything out of the ordinary or feel anything out of the ordinary?
Yeah, so there's a few things. Yes, a couple things. I'm under a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't quite tell you about everything. There, around Skinwalker Ranch, I have had a lot of events occur in the sky. I've personally interacted in video a UAP for 92 seconds. It was an orb. I show these in my most recent presentations at the conferences. What's interesting about it is I was using Ka band radar. I used to use it when I was in law enforcement as a police officer to, you know, catch you speeding down the highway. And it operates at 34.7 gigahertz. And that field, that specific radiation, it didn't like it and it tried to evade it. And during the course of this interaction, it was sending out its own frequencies in around the 3 gigahertz range, right at probably about 2.8 to 3.1 gigahertz. And then, as you know, if you watch the show, they were having a lot of interaction at the 1.6 gigahertz range. So that's probably my biggest. I've had a lot of magnetic interference. I've had an analog compass at certain locations spinning in both directions, just crazy. And that's probably not good for you, whoever is occurring, to make that occur. So have I seen anything really out of the ordinary? Maybe, and maybe it'll come out in the future.
Okay.
Soon, hopefully.
Well, let's walk back just a little bit to the origins of all of this, the Skinwalker Ranch, the entire phenomena happening in the Uinta Basin. And when we look, let's go back to the petroglyphs for a minute. When we see those spirals and we see those funny looking characters that the natives had put up there, can you identify any of that stuff? Do you know for sure what those spirals are or what those pictures represent?
Yeah, so I'm going to let you two on a little secret. Anybody that tells you they know what it is full of it. So it's highly subjective. Right. You know, the only person that knows what it really meant was the artist. And I don't care who you are. There's a lot of anthropologists that have written books about this, and it's just bogus. They don't know. The thing that you have to look at is you have to look at the rock art, the big picture. So you have to put it all together, what's going around, break it up, dissect it, and then put it back in its big picture. Look around you. Sometimes you may actually get to see geographical features that resemble what's in the petroglyphs. So maybe that's a clue as to what's going on. Mm-hmm. Now, what you do is you start seeing a lot of the same subject matter, whether it be anthropomorphic, which is human-like, or zoomorphic, which is animal-like. And start documenting, where they're showing up, the similarities between them, what they look like. Look for the symbolism that include in what they're wearing or what's around them. And then you can possibly start piecing things together. So one of those things on the Uinta Basin and in the Uinta Mountains and in southern Utah all the way down into northern Arizona is you have these anthropomorphic features that are huge, tall, anthropomorphic creatures of great stature with 6 digits on their hands, 6 digits on their feet, or some have 6 digits on their hands and these massive feet. You start putting that together, oral tradition in the past and with the current Native Americans, and you start piecing together that these were giants that we've seen throughout the world. No one could ever be 100% sure. And like I said, you have to look at the big picture of everything that's going around you. But like when you're talking about the swirls, a lot of people will say it's something out in space, it's cosmology. Others will say it deals with, the spiritualness or supernatural. So again, you're never 100% sure, but that's what the whole fun of it is trying to piece that puzzle together. And that's what I absolutely love, about the Mesoamerican culture and the Native American cultures here is all this connectivity and being able to piecemeal everything in hopes of finally finding out what's really going on, especially what was going on in the past.
Let me inject. Let me say something. We talk about skinwalkers, okay? Can we actually define what a skinwalker? Not everybody knows what a skinwalker is. Can we actually define a skinwalker here?
We can. Okay, so what our origin with skinwalkers is we're not quite sure. I believe it's a Nahual from Mesoamerica, which is the same feature as a shapeshifter. You have male and female. Here in this area, when we're talking about Skinwalker Ranch, the Ute Reservation, you have this backstory of the Ute defeating the Navajo and Navajo placing this curse of the Skinwalker upon the Ute. And again, it's a shapeshifter. The Navajo, the Dene, or who they really are, call it the Yi Nablushi. And it's this, what it is they're practicing Adishgash. And Adishgash is dark arts magic and sympathetic magic. So that's the reason why you can't get the Native Americans to talk about it, because it's sympathetic magic. If they say anything about it or think about it, they're under the spell or they're being assaulted by them. So it's really, really interesting, the moving parts on the background of it. But so you have that backstory of the Skinwalker, the Inal Lushi being shapeshifters. Biggest form that they more than likely like to take would be of a werewolf, a wolf. The way they do it is they take the skin of the animal, they wear that skin, they paint themselves completely in white dye, including their hair, and become that creature. So you have some really crazy stories about what people have seen. Now, I know that Skinwalker exists on the Navajo Reservation and in the Four Corners region. But recently, one of the things that we were looking at my team when we were up there is this really what we have going on in the Uinta Basin? And I don't think so. When you start talking to the old treasure hunters and going through the journals, I think what we have are dogmen in that area. And I think even then we have this highly specialized and secretive society up in the Uinta Mountains that's protecting a site. And what better way than to scare the crap out of everybody by telling them, that there's a skinwalker coming after you or in the area. But I really believe, oh, heck yeah. I'm out there in the pitch black dark and you can't help but start thinking about it when you hear the slightest movement. But I really believe, and I'll start presenting a lot of that. I've been putting that up my YouTube channel. As a matter of fact, I just put up a presentation on that exact subject matter and have everything in there, including what I believe is origin, which actually starts with the Mesoamerican cultures and was brought up, and the Navajo borrowed that because the Navajo were late to the game in North America. They came from up north and didn't get here until after the Ute, the Shoshone, the Paiute. And there's a lot that goes into it, but that's the rundown. And like I said, there's a great presentation I put together that just goes into better detail. And it's only like 6 or 7 minutes long and explains everything in that regard.
Yeah. And some of the stories coming from the Skinwalker Ranch involve things like huge wolves that we would define as a dire wolf or something like that being seen up there on the ranch. So some of those stories are quite kind of scary. Yeah. Now you also go ahead.
Yeah, and that's a great point to bring up. Is we're talking about the possibility and potential of portals. So what's been thrown out there quite a bit is: are we talking about a space-time disruption where the past comes into contact with the present? So we suddenly have this dire wolf that was located in that area 10,000 years ago, now in that same location. So there's this partial interaction that we know takes place between our time and that time, not fully, because interacting with it is not at maximum capacity, I guess you could kind of say. But that is one of the data points that legitimately occurred where two individuals saw the dire wolf at the exact same time. So it's not just one person, saying, oh, this is what happened. And they said it was like the size of a small donkey. And it happened in the area which is known as the Triangle. And what's even more interesting is they sent both of those individuals to Reno to get magnetic resonance image back during the Bass era. So what they were looking into was how this phenomena occurring on the ranch interacts and what it does to Homo sapiens, to us. What is it? Is it damaging the brain? Is the magnetic energy have something to do, causing something to occur in the brain? So that was just a good point. The dire wolf was just one of those where I actually believe that data point was legitimate from the Bass era.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. Susan, do you have another question?
Yeah, you spoke about Mesoamerica a few times, and I'm aware that you were recently in Mexico. So was there a reason for your trip, and what kind of research were you doing?
Yep, it was so that I could go and sip the best margaritas. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
So
I'm up for that.
No, the reason was when I go and I do a lot of my research and investigation, I've been incorporating new technology that's been coming out. That technology I have is a full radar that has multiple frequencies, so it's capable of going deeper down than what we've seen before. And There's new 3D subsurface geo survey systems that are magnetometers that are able to take magnetic readings at certain points in the planet and through software convert it to color coding it so that we know what's underground in a non-invasive manner. We're able to see below, what's below our feet. And so I'd been to Mexico many, many times, and there's just so much investigation and research you can do without getting a shovel and digging. And, you do that on top of a pyramid or an old palace, I'm going to be thrown into a Mexican prison, and that's no bueno. But I had to figure out a way to go past that. And what I did was I actually found a geo survey system that's portable. It wraps around your ankle, and it's a tablet, and you put your pants over it, your jeans over it, and you're actually able to conduct, grid searches of pyramids and other ancient sites. And security probably thought I was drunk or crazy, but they have no clue that I'm, looking into the pyramids to see what's, beneath our feet or what's inside of them. And it comes back with some very interesting things. So when I was there recently, we went to several of the pyramid sites. One of them was Cuicuilco. That's the photo up right now, which is in the center of Mexico City. That one that was just put up there was Tula, right there. Tula was where probably the main civilization location for the Toltec, which were before the Aztec. And if you look at that red location, it's right where I'm standing now. This is on top of the pyramid. I'm wearing the device on my right ankle. You can kind of see it. What I found was pretty amazing is 2.9 feet right there, that 0.85 meters, so about 2.9 feet below the ground, there's a metal object that's probably about anywhere from 10 to 15 inches in diameter. And I talked to some of the archaeologists back in Mexico City at the Anthropology Museum, and no clue. So they were pretty fascinated with that. I mean, first they wanted to know how I was able to do it without security, and I kind of went into it. But these are the data points that we need to collect. I mean, look at the things that we're missing from site locations that we're aware of. And remember that the Toltec were incredible metallurgists. Their cities more than likely were completely covered in gold. Unfortunately, when their cities collapsed, their civilization collapsed, you had all these people come in and loot. So the only way we know about this is through the oral tradition. But what if they put these objects or had objects inside the pyramid? And sure enough, there it is. There's proof that there's these metal objects inside. And where can we go now? That's the next question, is what do we want to do with this information? And in Cuicuilco, which was a round pyramid in Mexico City, there were a lot of passageways that we located that had not been excavated yet. So where do those lead to? What other chambers or inner sites have we yet to locate? Now we can follow. I map it using this magnetometer, and it's just pretty cool. And you can use this anywhere, including on Skinwalker Ranch, on Blind Frog Ranch, underground when we're in the underground cavern system, Uinta Basin and mountains. So, and I added a brand new Detect SP5100 metal detection unit. Most people, when they have a metal detector, know that you can only go about 10 to 12 inches down to see what's there. You've seen it on a lot of these shows. Well, that unit now has a 2x2 meter coil, so I'm actually able to go 20 feet below ground. And since it has a built-in magnetometer, I'm able to immediately know if I'm looking at ferrous material or other type of ores, whether that be silver, platinum, gold. Just an amazing way to meld the research on the boots, on the ground investigation, with this new technology to hopefully push forward in understanding the high strangeness and this lost historical data from past cultures and civilizations.
Non-invasive examination is becoming such a technology nowadays, and this thing that you're wearing is just attached right to your foot, so you just walk around and get these readings, correct?
Yep, that's it.
There's no digging.
No digging. You like I said, a lot of don't even let you take video. So,
right.
Like they may think you're like sick in the head or drunk or something, but you're collecting some amazing data without them knowing. And then, you're able to share that information. And I think it's an eye opener for a lot of academia as to, what the potential is moving forward in the future with excavation, or at least you're immediately able to know exactly where you need to dig. It's no more guessing. Go ahead, Susan. I'm sorry.
What were you looking for? Was it metals or something different?
I wanted to know what was inside.
Okay.
I have all this historical data from, research journals from the conquistadors up to when Mexico, became sovereign, Spain, and historical books that have been kept, oral tradition. And you hear about this. How do you prove it if you can't dig? And you have all these laws now that stop you. NAGPRA is just a big one. I don't think it's always used appropriately the way that it was. It pisses me off sometimes, but it was just a matter of thinking out of the box how to get around it.
Well, so non-destructive examination or non-invasive. Let me ask you a question. What do you think's down there? You think it's gold? I mean, can you tell the density of the object?
Yeah, so that was, I personally believe that what's inside that pyramid at 2.9 feet is a gold object, not just because of the information I had, but because of how dense it looks, where it was put, its placement. And you have to remember what's great about this unit is it's not just 2D. What you saw there was the two-dimensional mapping. I can also go three-dimensional and rotate it once I've collected that data. So I'm actually able to see at height, the depth, the width, and I do personally believe that it's gold.
So do you think, could you get an image then if you could do a three-dimensional? Can you get an image, an actual image of the object?
There's other technology that can do that. Unfortunately, right now it can only go down to about 18 inches, and it's very expensive. I'm still paying off what I got now. So maybe in the future, that might be something I add, it's in my bucket list. But yeah, so we do have that technology available. I'm sure it'll continue to depth-wise increase, so it can go down farther. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. And, if I am able to conduct the actual investigation, like I can do it, certain places in the Uinta Basin, I can actually go from one piece of equipment to the next. So I would use the deep penetrating first, then go to a couple magnetometers, and then finally pull out my new dipole GPR. Unfortunately, I couldn't do that on top of a pyramid.
Oh, wow. Well, let me ask you this. Getting back to the Uinta Basin and the Skinwalker Ranch, do you think we're talking about anything other than Native Americans, or are we talking about some other sort of species or civilizations or other peoples? What is your opinion?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. You've seen my presentations. I'm tracking these people of great stature, the giants. Call it what it is. There were giants here. They were all over the world. I've been tracking them for decades, going to all different countries. They are in the historical data, their oral tradition. And you put that together with a lot of the high strangeness that's taking place, a lot of it coincides with each other. And it makes you wonder, are we talking about structures below ground from a very long time ago? And, you got to remember, it's not just the Ute, Shoshone, and Paiute, the Timpanogos that were at this area. You have the ancestral Puebloans that more than likely were here as well. And they were rich in historical data, and now you have their recent ancestors of the Hopi and the Zuni Pueblo. And talking to them, there's a lot of guarded information that we're not privy to, not being Native American, not being on the reservation. Fortunately, some people have been kind enough over the years to pass some of that information on to me. And I think that we're looking, like I said, at a location that was one of very few around the world that was set up to survive a major catastrophic event. And these are sites that are underground. I do present in one of my presentations, I have it on my YouTube channel, that using my geosurvey magnetometers in the Uinta Mountains, we actually located an underground site that's below 12 feet that looks or is in the shape of Native American tradition that goes back thousands, if not tens of thousands of years, in a specific formation. And when you start to discuss the history of this formation, it just leads into another 4 or 5 hour conversation as to what it entails and why it's done that way. But so I think we had other species or that were completely different than what we consider now Native American or their ancestors.
Wow.
What's your best guess at the genetics of giants? Is it sort of an offshoot of humans? Is it, you're talking about something different?
Good question.
There's so much ethnicities among Homo sapien, and then you have different nationalities. You have this mix of culture among our civilization. The same had to occur in the past. How pure that race was and where they originated. A lot of people always bring up Anunnaki and the Nephilim because, that's what's in the Bible, and it's a great historical book. But I think it goes deeper into the past. From a DNA standpoint, I'm not sure if, this was a race, a species that we were well before Homo sapien was. I don't think that it necessarily has to have been from another world. I think they could have been here and originated or it's possible that it could have been elsewhere. That is a possibility. But as time went on and catastrophic events occurred, that DNA was altered, and at some point there weren't enough of these giants or people of great stature to where they had to then interbreed with some other species, whether that was Neanderthal, Homo habilis, Homo sapien, Homo sapien sapien. I think we went into this hybrid situation. And as this occurred, there was a reduction in size of these people of great stature until we got to the end with what we know as the Sitka or the Uemas here in the Americas, where they were probably about 6 to 6.5 feet tall, and the men were 7 to 7.5 feet. And so hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah.
We're getting down to 5 minutes here. Suzanne, you want to ask him this last question here, and maybe we can.
You go ahead. Okay,
so what do you think is the government's interest in the Skinwalker Ranch? Because that's a good one. Hence, ASAP, and Robert Bigelow's Bass. What's going on there, James? We just got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah. Well, remember that the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program, the OSAP program, originated on Skinwalker Ranch, and Bass was created to do this. Yeah. And I think there was some sketchy things going on personally in regards to collecting funding. I'd be real interested to know where $20 million went. I think that question should be asked at a higher level. I've seen the technology that was available to them, and my technology is far greater and far more expensive than what's there. And we got to start asking ourselves, where did that money go? But if you get away from that part of the data, there were some points that they were looking into, and probably the biggest one that we know of was what the high strangeness that's occurring at Skinwalker Ranch and around it in the Uinta Basin obviously is having some effect on our anatomy, on human beings. And they want to know what that is. So if there is anomalous energy that's occurring, whether it be aimed at us like the Havana syndrome, or if it's just because it's occurring that it's having an effect on human beings, I think there's an error as to what it's doing to us. And we've seen that with on the show with Dr. Taylor, with Tom Winterton, they were affected by some type of radiation that we can't find the origin. And I know for sure, like I said, they sent 2 people back to Reno for an MRI for magnetic resonance imaging when they came into contact with that high strangeness, that paranormal, that dire wolf. So it's twofold, really. And then remember too that maybe there's something else that they were looking into as to possibly or having the potential to piggyback onto energy. Like, can it increase a human's ability to project elsewhere or to remote view? And if there is portals, I personally believe that there's these high magnetic energy coming in contact with this electromagnetic energy, and it's creating electron diffusion regions, which you would call a portal. So these events, where are they coming from? Can you go and interact with it, go through it, come out of it? And what are those effects? So I think it's a mix of several of those events.
James, I've got a very important question for you. If it's a portal and you can go to different time periods, would you go to the past or the future?
I'm not quite sure that we would actually be able to go into the future. It's a good question, but I would absolutely go into the past. I'd be too afraid of what's in front of me.
Exactly.
I thought you were going to say the past.
I mean, we're talking interdimensional things. We're talking time travel. We're talking giants. There is a bunch of things, James, that I'd love to talk to you about that you're obviously up on. We're running out of time. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Suzanne, do you have any final comments for James here?
Well, I just think it's a fascinating area of study. And so, I hope you keep on exploring and that we can have you back sometime to hear what you're up to.
I think that would be great, James. We need to have you back in a program. I want to talk about giants. I'm fascinated with that.
Yeah. Usually can't get me to stop talking about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. it's been great having you on. I've known you for a number of years. You're just a fascinating guy. I consider you a close friend, actually a good friend of mine. And here on Dark Window, Suzanne and I, and Patricia in the background, who you don't see a lot of, but she's the one that kind of keeps us on track. She's given me the little warning over here. Jim, wrap it up. So thank you for joining us, James. Suzanne, anything else?
No, happy exploring.
Yeah, happy exploring.
Thanks.
And thank you for being here. I want to thank everyone all of our listeners. We'll be back again. We have a number of guests lined up. Michael Schratt. We have Tracy Dolan. We have Richard Dolan coming on. We have, oh my gosh, we've got people from the Arizona MUFON group. We've got, well, the list goes on, and I could talk for hours about who we have set up for I know a lot of people. I've been around a long time in this genre, in this field of research, and love it. And thank you for joining us here on KGRA's digital broadcasting of Dark Window. Thank you for being here.